Well, if you've been watching Tech Garage long enough, you remember way back in season 4, we had Project M&M. Well, that was a Mercury marquee. It was a fun show, but now it's time for Project M&M Part 2. And I can tell you one thing, it's a Mercury, but folks, this one is no marquee. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, I told you it wasn't a Mercury marquee, and that it is not. It is a Mercury, though, but it's a Mercury Marauder. And Dave, this is a rare car and a cool car, man.
Yeah, you are understating things, John. In 2003 and 2004, they only made 11,000 of these. Meanwhile, Toyota Camry was the most produced car in the entire universe, and they made 900,000 over those 2 years. So you're talking 900,000 versus 11,000. This is a rare bird right here.
Yeah, and it's really neat. I mean, it's a big upgrade from our marquee project. Give me that, because number one, the engine. Number two, hey, it's not your granddaddy's marquee, man. This thing is really cool. But the engine, instead of the 2-valve, well, you know what it is, don't you?
The big time. It's 4-valve engine, the same thing you find in the Cobra.
Watch this, ready?
Yeah. You can rotate the earth with this thing, baby.
Man, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Gotcha. Look at that bad boy. Oh, Lord. Here we go. Step one.
Yeah.
All right.
Hood prop or buy a helmet are the two.
There you go.
There, yeah.
But that's why it's there, Dave. Anyway, we're gonna do a whole analysis on this car and figure out what's going on. But let me give you the backstory first, okay? So here's the deal. The car was overheating, randomly overheating, and we picked it up for a pretty good price. I mean, it is a Marauder, and what's going on though? These engines are very susceptible to overheating, and why is that? Because they're higher here than they are here. So gravity, obviously, the air is going to pocket up right there.
Oh, interesting.
So I figured we would try to bleed and stuff, but no worries. I got a whole engine, and RockAuto.com supplied me with all the gaskets. We could rebuild this if we have to rebuild this. I'm hoping we don't have to, but you know, it may have some air pockets.
All right, what do you do about that?
Well, that's interesting, okay? They say to bleed it, and what we can do is bleed it from here. This is actually the bleeder screw right here, but not even that. I've bled it a couple times, and it's still overheated a little bit. So I talked to a buddy of mine up in Detroit, and he says, get that front end way up in the air. We have a lift to do that, and makes sense to me because the air is gonna rise to the highest place. This is the radiator tank, that's even below that. So he's claiming you fill this up with coolant very, very slow, burp it like a little baby, just keep going and burp it and burp it and burp it, run it and burp it, even sometimes pressurize it here to get some of the air out. So I thought we would give that a shot. I really don't know why the air got in there though.
Well, I looked a little bit earlier and I saw that there's a new water pump put on here. You can see that's the only shiny part on there. And so I would bet when they put that in, they didn't bleed the system.
Well, there you go. I mean, that would do it. And man, you're right. How did I miss that? Okay. So obviously it's got a new water pump on there. Maybe they just introduced air in the system. That would be great. We burp it. Man, we got us a Marauder. We're ready to roll. But of course, just like in true Tech Garage fashion, Dave, there was a show we did years ago and it was a Cadillac inspection all the way through. It was one of our most popular shows. Everybody out there loved it. And why did they love it? Because we did kind of a cost analysis. Is it worth keeping the car? So Dave, I see you got your whiteboard. You're ready to do it.
Yeah.
Why don't you grab your whiteboard? First thing you can write down right on there is hood struts.
Okay, yeah.
Start there. I'm not going to get clunked with hood struts in the head.
Okay.
All right. And if you guys take a look at this graphic right here, you guys can see we used this on a Cadillac years ago, and it's such an in-detailed sheet that we're going to use it again. And it all starts right there with the history. We know the history of this car. It was sold in Indiana. It got here, and it's only got 69,000 miles, so we're pretty happy with it. Maintenance, everything looks pretty good. You can see it. Tires and pads, well, they're about shot. We'll take a look at that once we get under the undercarriage. Detailing, we're gonna overlook that. There's some scratches and some problems there, but we wanna make sure the car is mechanically sound. Road test, I drove it here. It drove pretty good, didn't feel too crazy. All the functionality of what's going on inside was good. Then we got to go to the under compartment there, Dave. Underneath, eventually we're going to have to take a look at that. But right now, we'll take a look at the engine compartment. That's important. We can tell a lot of what's going on just by a good visual inspection.
Yes, sir, and that's what you want to do before you do just about anything. Once you get the tires off, even if you're not worried about brakes, you want to check your brakes. You want to check everything under there. You want to check the suspension. Same thing under the hood. You may be going in for something else. While you're under there, though, you might as well look around and make sure everything looks good. And we can do that thanks to our work light we've got from our friends at RockAuto.com here. And we couldn't do TV and we couldn't work on vehicles without one of these. This is
very
great.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so this will give us an idea of what's going on. Just a quick visual inspection.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dave, we're going to change all the fluids. That's a gimme.
Yep.
But just take a look around your side, see what you find.
This is pretty remarkable. I'm seeing some surface rust like you would anywhere else, but the hoses all look really, really good. I don't see any cracking. I don't see any connections that are bad, visually anyway. Nothing seems to be out of place. This fire blanket's a little chewed up, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, same here on my side. I mean, everything looks pretty good, like you said, just some rust. It could have been up north a little bit, but the hoses seem all pliable. Everything's good, the alternator. One thing I don't like, Dave, though, is I'm a little concerned after you told me about the water pump. It's probably just a serpentine belt. The tensioner looks old, and because it has that susceptibility of that coolant air pockets, I think it's a good idea to keep that water pump in tip-top shape.
And you know, I'm looking at that right now, and I see the grooves are really deep. And that's kind of counterintuitive. With the tire, you want really deep grooves. With the belt, you don't want that. That means that belt is potentially worn out.
Yeah.
And think of all the things that can go wrong if that serpentine belt breaks.
Hey, throw that down on our list and bleed it. I'll get that on the list. But you guys, check this out. I think, Dave, it's going to be well worth it. I mean, this is actually the window sticker back in 2003. This is so cool. This car cost $34,845.
Holy moly.
Imagine that, Dave.
That's like $7.8 trillion in today's money. That's incredible.
That's the truth. Dave, we'll go ahead and do the serpentine belt while we got it down. We'll go ahead and put some new hood props on it. I don't want to get clunked anymore. And we'll try that bleeding process and we'll see how it goes. Then we're going to have to do an undercarriage inspection. But maybe we should just take a break and let Josh and our lead tech Benjamin have at this one for a little while. Man, we've been working hard this season.
I think that's a great idea.
Hey, you guys come back right after this break. We're going to get it up in the air and check the undercarriage. We'll show you how all this is done as well. Well, stick around, I promise. We'll be back with more Tech Garage right after this break.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need. We are back at Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Just finishing our lunch break, and John is still working on dessert. We're working on our Marauder here, Project M&M 2. John, let's take a look here and see what's going on underneath. We've already looked under the hood, and that's why we sent Josh and Benjamin to work while we were gone, enjoying our lunch. So what did they tackle?
Yeah, they did a great job. They started out with the serpentine belt, which is just kind of a gimme. They took the tensioner off, but first thing they did was take a picture of it. Then they went ahead and released the tensioner, slipped the belt off, replaced the tensioner, which was a good idea. Then just looked at their picture, reassembled everything, make sure it was in good shape and running in the right grooves. We're good there.
Very good. And then don't forget the hood props. That's an easy fix. You just pull a clip out on the bottom, clip out on the top of each side, put the new ones in, put the clips back in, and you are good to go. You're not going to bonk your head anymore.
We should have done those.
I know.
Then they addressed that overheating issue, which was great. They lifted the car up pretty good, man. And they told me they got a burp out of it. I'm feeling pretty comfortable. They put coolant in that little fitting, and I think we might be in good shape with the engine, Dave. I mean, but we need to start right here. This is dual exhaust, baby, from the factory. No marquee. That's a Murata dual exhaust.
That Cobra engine, so that merits a dual exhaust system. And then looking back here at the shocks, this is something we got to replace. I mean, they might be good, but think about a desk chair. This car's like, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, 20 years old. You've been sitting in an old desk chair that's going to leak somewhere eventually. So we might as well replace those while they're up there.
Differential service, we're here. Let's get to it, all right? So we'll have them do that as well. Differential service. Our sway bar links look good. Exhaust. Back U joints are fine. Everything's looking pretty tight under here. And then, uh-oh, we got an issue there, though.
Yes, this is looks like the original fuel filter. At least it's old enough that we want to replace it. These are good for 50,000 miles. And what'd you say, this has like 60 something on it?
Yep,
so if it's the original, that's definitely time for that to go anyway.
Yeah, and something's going on there. They got clamps, they were unsecure. If it was secure, but hopefully we'll just pull those off and everything will be secure. If not, we'll repair that as well. We'll have them do it, but we'll work our way up.
John, those aren't doing anything anyway. They just popped right off.
Whoa.
Yeah, nice. We'll fix that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Body mounts all look good. Cables, our exhaust. Work our way up here. Transmissions mounts. U-joints in the front are nice and tight. Transmission mounts tight.
And the catalytic converters both look good. And sometimes you get a rattle in there, I guess, when it gets old and the material degrades. But these don't sound like that. Of course, we'll know once it starts running if we need to replace those.
No transmission fluid leaks. A lot of dirt, but no leaks. That's great.
Yeah. And that's another thing. While it's up, you might as well replace that transmission fluid. Again, the car's been sitting for a long, long time. It's a 20-year-old car. Well, it's $50.
Yep.
So you might as well do it while you're doing all this other stuff.
No oil leaks, no oil leaks. We're in good shape.
Excellent. Everything looks great.
Go ahead and get the oil changed, and sway bars, everything looks pretty good up here. So we'll get them to work, and hey, I'll tell you what, we'll take another break.
That's a good idea.
We'll go do actually Garage Ed, more suspension Garage Ed coming back after this break. So stick around. There's plenty more Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com. Well, there's a good look at the best crew in the business, -1, our Caleb actually getting that shot. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Well, we made it all the way to Garage Ed in the alignment segment, man. This is gonna be good, so I need you to put on your thinking caps, and this is interactive. So let's start out with an alignment, and we'll look at some of the angles in a second. But here's the deal, you're going down the road and you say, hey, I got an extra $100 bill in my hand, I think I'll stop and get an alignment. That's not how it works, does it? No, what happened is your car's pulling, you got a clunk, you got a rattle, something's going on. First off, 2 fingers on the steering wheel. Don't just let it go and expect to go 5 miles straight. That don't happen. 2 fingers on the steering wheel. If it's pulling out to the left or right off that 2 fingers and the weight of your arm, you might need an alignment. Now, what do? You can always read these tire patterns. This will give you a good indication of what's going on with alignment angles. You see the feathering right there? We'll talk about toe. That's a toe angle that has a problem. Overinflation, well, pretty obvious. It's all down the center of the tire. It's popping out. Underinflation on both sides because it's almost flat. One side wear, that's a camber issue. We're going to look at positive and negative camber, and then the cupping is usually something to do with shocks. The tire's bouncing off the road and you got an issue there. Now, what do? Well, you do your pre-alignment inspection. That's number 1. We always talk about that here on Tech Garage. Listen, just go through the whole thing from top to bottom. You cannot do an alignment if the suspension is not in tip-top shape. It's just that easy. Don't bother, it's not gonna hold. Now, go ahead and drop the coffee. Let's get your arms up because it's the time to interact with Tech Garage. We're talking about alignment angles. The first one I wanna talk about is caster. Now, caster, if I turn sideways and you get your arms up, come on, everybody, get your arms up. All right, here we go. So we take the spindle and we go back like this. If we take the spindle and go back, the wheel moves forward. That's positive caster. That's positive. That gives us good steerability, gives us a nice tight steering. If we go this way, the spindle's going this way, the wheel goes back in the well, that's negative caster. Now, negative caster, you know, your shopping buggy when you go down the road, in the shopping buggy, or you go to the store and that thing's wobbling all over the place, it tends to go the other way. That's a good example of negative caster. Now, positive, think about riding that bicycle. You let your hands off the steering wheel and it just goes nice and straight. Why? Good steerability. It's way out there like our chopper here. That's positive caster. Now, a car always pulls to the most negative caster. Well, that makes sense too. If this one's in and this one's out, I automatically want to go in this direction. So negative caster, it's going to pull. Next one, let's look at camber. Now, camber is the tilting of the tires in and out viewed from the front. So if I tilt them in like this, that's actually negative camber. Now, remember that one side tire wear? Right here on the inside of both of these, negative. Now, I'm exaggerating, but that's negative camber. Positive camber, the tires are going to be tilted out this way. Most cars employ about 0 camber straight up and down, but if it starts getting to this angle right here, you're going to wear around the outside of the tire all the way around. Last but not least, there's toe. Now, toe, we can demonstrate with toe in. If we got it towed in like that, your actually tires are pulled in. We're scuffing the tires from the outside in. That's that feather wear. Now, depending on the direction of the feather wear, depending on my toe angle. This one is going from the outside in. If I go this way, I'm actually going from the inside out. You're pushing the tires down the road. Toe is the most tire wearing angle. That thing is really will hack up a pair of tires in a heartbeat. So make sure your alignment angles are in good shape. How are you going to do that? Well, there's all kinds of adjustments going on. If you look down here, you actually have an eccentric right there where you can move that spindle in and out. There's shims for control arms, eccentrics for control arms, shims for rear end. You want the tire in the proper position. How are you going to do it? Oh, Dave's got some examples of different caster, camber, and toe adjustments right over there on our Challenger.
Well, John, there's a number of ways to make alignment adjustments depending on your vehicle. Now, some vehicles, you might have cams or eccentrics, some folks might call them, and these are basically out of round bolts like this, and every time you rotate it, it actually shifts the control arm in one direction or the other. And in that case, you can adjust both camber and caster. Or your vehicle might have a cam down there where the lower part of the strut and the steering spindle meet. You can only adjust camber down there, but it's a relatively easy adjustment to make. Some vehicles require shims, maybe something like this one, and you actually put the shim between the frame of the car and the upper control arm. You can adjust both camber and caster that way. And anytime you're dealing with tie rods, that means you're dealing with toe. First, you loosen the jam nut. You can turn the tie rod in either direction to change the toe and put the jam nut back down to tighten it up. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure the boot doesn't twist with it. Here in our Dodge, we've got a couple of ways to deal with our alignment issues here. We've got the tie rod, and we've also got the bottom of the lower control arm here. And those are the only two places we can make adjustments. Check your service manual to see what's right for your car. When we come back, we're going to be pulling trouble codes, so do not miss it here on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. NH Oil Undercoating, the official oil-based rust prevention system. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, it's time for the hashtag MTTT, the Master Technician Tech Tip. And boy, this one's a good one. You know, you get in your car, you turn on your key, and bam, there's that check engine light, man. You guys know what I'm talking about. The infamous check engine light. Look at all those. It may be one of those. Or you may turn on your dash and bam, all of a sudden you have all these lights. It's lit up like a Christmas tree. You don't know what to do. Believe it or not, this is our Jeep owner's manual here for our Liberty. It's got all the different code definitions for the different lights up there, and there's a ton of them there, but it doesn't have to be that daunting. Let me explain it to you. Some of the shops they use, professional shops, use something like this. It's a laptop-based scan tool. It's the Continental Diagnose Pro, and basically this just plugs into the OBDII connector, and they feed the data right to it. A ton of data, a ton of information. Same here with the OTC Evolve. They go under there and wirelessly, they actually connect this and then talk to the scan tool so they can see what's going on. You know, you can do this right at home. You don't have to spend a ton of money to do it. Rock Auto has this right here called a code reader. This is pretty cool because it reads all the codes. So what you do with this is you actually just take it and you plug it into your onboard diagnostic connector. It's OBDII. It's located under the driver's side, and 1996 or above, every car is equipped with one of those. Just find it under there, plug it into that connector, bam, it's going to power up. Hit the button and read the code. That means the world to you, that code, okay? So what's going on once you get that code? Well, take a look at this graphic. This is pretty cool. So the code actually means something. Matter of fact, that first digit, you may pull up a B code, that's a body module, C is chassis, P is powertrain, or U is a network problem, a communication problem. Well, the second digit there, it's either gonna be a 0 or a 1. 0 is a generic code, 1 is a manufacturer-specific code. A lot of times a scan tool may pick up a manufacturer-specific code, a little more in depth, but a 0 code will give you just as much information. You'll be able to find a flow chart to go ahead and diagnose the car. Next one you can see there, well, it's the system. If it's a P01, it's a fuel metering, a powertrain generic fuel metering. It could be a P03, that's an ignition. A lot of times we see a 300, which is a misfire, a P0300 random misfire. And then the actual fault description is the last 2 digits of the code. So if it was a P0302, that's a misfire on cylinder 2. So you can look up that code definition, or you can just download it from our site there. Just find it, get it, that'll give you a big hand. Pretty simple to do. You guys can scan your own cars, no problem. And if you want to cut down on your diagnostic time, well, RockAuto.com can help.
Well, that's right, John. Now, Tom, at RockAuto.com, how do you narrow things down? Say I know sort of what the problem is. How can you help me find the right parts?
Yeah, the RockAuto.com online catalog can really help with diagnosing. Let's say your idle is surging, the car is stalling, and say, oh, I suspect this is fuel air. So you look up your vehicle and we have a category fuel air. You go there, and then as you look at the list of parts, some will be in bold print and some are in less bold print. The bold prints are replaced more often by other customers, so that can be a clue that, okay, other people are having this problem. And then when you click on that bold part, you'll often see a large list of manufacturers. So if manufacturers are taking the time to make the part, it must fail a lot.
There's a demand for it.
Right, and where that similar part on another engine from another manufacturer may not, rarely or never fail, so nobody will make a replacement, or there'll be very few choices.
And you guys are very specific too. It's not, you're not bolding a particular part for every make of car.
Right. It's the ones for that car that tend to fail. Then another neat thing we have is part number search. You can enter the whole number or part of the number, just put asterisks for the pieces you can't read, and search for it and identify the part. And pictures are invaluable for saying, okay, that's what this is.
I also like that you have photos, because you might not know what the connector looks like on the end of it or something like that, and you can compare it with what's on the website.
Right. Yeah, there may be parts may have changed mid-year, so you can identify, okay, that's what's on my vehicle.
Well, rockauto.com has all the parts your car will ever need, and they sure make it easy to find out which ones you need.
Well, it's all the correct fluids and the levels are right. It was easy. We went down and did an oil change. They drained the oil, put a new filter on, moved their way to the transmission, new fluid and filter there as well, made their way to the fuel filter, and then over to the differential. Man, that was easy.
Easy for you. Benjamin and I did all the work.
Dave, they sent us over some brakes and some rotors, Power Stop, and rockauto.com. This car actually deserves another show.
Well, I think we should do it again next week. In fact, we are going to be here same time, same sandbox. We hope you join us too. Project M&M 2 and a whole lot more coming up next week on Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. We'll see you then.